There was a father who sold his big fancy house in Ravelston Dykes. Well, he didn't actually sell his big fancy house in Ravelston Dykes. He was getting older, and his son said, "Dad, let's avoid inheritance tax. Let's do the clever thing and let's sell your pile. I'll keep it. You live in it. So when you die, I'll get it and we'll just stop the government taking the money." So his dad said, "Good idea, son." So he signed everything over to his son, his big fancy house in Ravelston Dykes. Oh boy, you should have seen it. You know, yon big piles with lawns and grass and stuff near the golf course. Very expensive. And has signed it over to his son thinking, that's it, sorted. No inheritance tax. My son will get the money. Great. Signed it over to the solicitor. Got the deal done. Dad said goodbye and went home feeling well chuffed. The son stayed on at the solicitor and says, "Right now, let's sell the house because I want the money." So they do a deal and the house is sold because it's a big fancy pile in Ravelston Dykes. So he sold the house within days and got a stash of money for it. Sold the house, sold the furniture, sold absolutely everything. Dad was out in the street, destitute, homeless. Shocking, isn't it? Shocking. Have you read Luke 15 recently? Parable of the prodigal son. That's what he did. He says, "Dad, I want you dead. I want your money now." That's what he was saying. "I want you dead. I want my inheritance now. You're as good as dead to me. Goodbye." And his dad gave the money. But before we think about that, I just want to read a wee bit from Romans chapter 5. Romans chapter 5, verses 10 to 15. Romans 5, 10 to 15. "For if while we were enemies, we were reconciled to God by the death of his Son, how much more, now that we are reconciled, shall we be saved by his life? More than that, we also rejoice in God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have now received reconciliation. Therefore, just as sin came into the world through one man, and death through sin, and so spread to all men, because all sinned. For sin indeed was in the world before the law was given, but sin is not counted where there is no law. Yet death reigned from Adam to Moses, even over those whose sinning was not like the transgression of Adam, who was a type of the one who was to come." And this is the key bit I want to bring out today. Verse 15, "But the free gift is not like the trespass. For if many died through one man's trespass, how much more have the grace of God and the free gift by the grace of that one man, Jesus Christ, abounded for many. For the gift is not like the trespass." The gift is not like the trespass. Let's look at Luke 15. It's a parable. Actually, the three stories in Luke 15 of the lost lamb, of the lost coin, and the lost son is one parable. Jesus in Luke 15, verse 1. Says, "Now the tax collectors and sinners were all drawing near to him, and the Pharisees and the scribes grumbled, saying, 'This man receives sinners and eats with them.'" They're effectively saying is, why do more people go to Jesus' church than our church? Why do they hang out with him? We've got all the rules. We've got all the regulations. We know how to do it. And yet they're going to him. What's with it with Jesus? And Jesus tells them this parable, it says in verse 3, singular. And he tells them these three stories about a sheep being lost, about a coin being lost, and a son being lost. The sheep being lost, what happened to it? The shepherd, when he found it, put it on his shoulders, and with rejoice carried him home. The coin, when the woman found the coin, what did she do? She held it tightly. She wasn't going to lose that coin again. And the son, what happened to the son? Well, you know the end of the story, but we're going to take a moment in getting there. The son had wanted his father dead. His son had said, "Now give me the inheritance now." And the son took the dad's inheritance, took everything that was belonging to him, and went away and squandered it. Went on a cruise, round the world cruise. I guess they couldn't do that then, but the equivalent. He spent all his money. And then in verse 17 it says, "And when he came to himself, he said, 'How many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread, but I perish here with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and earth, and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants.' So he came to his senses, and he says, right, I need to go back home because there's food there, there's warmth there. I need to go back home. Right, so what am I going to say, right? And you know what it's like. You rehearse in your mind what you're going to say. There's an argument coming up, and you rehearse in your mind, yeah? There's a story about a man who was driving one night, and he got a puncture. And he went to his boot, looked in the boot of the car, and he'd forgotten his jack. He couldn't change the wheel. What am I going to do? I'm going to have to borrow a jack somewhere. So he trudges off down the country lane and sees a farmhouse in the distance. I'll go to the farmhouse. Then there's a light on upstairs. And then just as he gets near to the farmhouse, he thinks, I'm bothering them. I'm interrupting them. I'll bet they'll say, go away, don't want you. And just reject me and say, you're not getting a jack, and just what are you doing bothering us at this time of night? All the kind of stuff which goes through our minds when we're thinking about these things in advance. So as he's getting near the farmhouse, the light goes out. Oh, he's asleep now. He really will be angry. But still he says, I'm desperate for it. So he knocks on the door, and the upstairs window flies open. Yes? Don't want your stupid jack anyway. The son had got the speech rehearsed in his mind. He had thought about his father's reaction. Father, I've sinned against heaven. I'm not worthy to be your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. So he trudges home. I've sinned against heaven. I'm not worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your servants. Right, that's what I'm going to say. I've sinned against heaven and earth. Make me like one of yours. Yeah, right, okay, this is what I'm going to say. So he gets home. And the first thing that shocks him is that he's not even able to get to the front door. The father is running to him because he's thinking, will I even be able to get to the front door to speak to Dad? Or will all the servants kick me out? Will all the servants actually stone me? Because in Leviticus it says that if a son causes shame on his parents, he is to be stoned at the city gates. He's to be killed. So he's thinking, am I even going to speak to my father? And what happens if my father opens the door and I do get to speak to him? What's he going to do? And all this is going through his mind. Then the father comes running to him. And that is shocking for him, but also all the servants and all the workers in the fields and all the villagers. They see their father running. They see the old man running, which is, in that culture, a shameful thing to do. Old men just do not run. And he was running towards the son. And the villagers, what's going on? What's happening? What's going to happen? So you can imagine them in the fields digging, and they see the old man running, and they just drop their spades and follow, or the woman at the well just thinking, drawing water. Well, what's going on? And they drop the buckets, and or the bread's left in the oven. What's going on? We got to check this out. What is going to happen? Is the father going to beat him? Is he going to get us to beat him? What's going to happen? And they are shocked when the son begins to say the words, I've sinned against heaven. Yep, you certainly have. I'm not worthy to be called your son. Yep, you certainly are. But he didn't get to say any more. The father shut him up with a massive hug, with a massive embrace. He was expecting rejection. He was expecting a good beating at best and stoning at worst. He was wanting to say these words to his father, and he didn't even get them out of his mouth because the father embraced him. He wanted to negotiate with Father. He wanted to say, I'm not worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. I know I owe you everything. I need to repay you. So let me work for you. Let me repay you. Let me live with one of the servants because I owe you so much. I cannot repay. It's too much. And he wanted to negotiate. He actually wanted to keep his identity, didn't he? Well, I'm in charge here because if I'm negotiating the terms, then I've got some agency. I've got some responsibility. I've got some power in this relationship because I'm negotiating the terms. And the father says, you don't negotiate the terms with me. You accept me. I accept you as you are. And so he embraces him and he hugs him. The father embraces the son. The sheep was carried, the coin was held, and the son embraced. Going to use this as a launch point to go and read from Matthew 11 now. Matthew 11. That well-known phrase, that well-known promise. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. When I talk about yoke, what comes to your mind? What image comes to your mind? What do you see? What do you think? Yoke. What do you see in your mind? And don't say an egg, please. What comes to your mind when I say a yoke? Yep. Round the shoulders. Oxen, carts, all this kind of stuff, yeah? So we think when Jesus says, my yoke is easy, it's a wooden yoke. And Jesus, after all, was a carpenter, wasn't he? So he made the best yokes, the best fitting yokes in town. That's what I've heard many times. Friends, no. 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 Jesus talks about children coming to him. He says, I reveal these things to little children. So when Jesus talks about a yoke, is he talking about children? Is he talking about this wooden thing, putting them on children's shoulders? Give us a break. I don't think so. So what does he mean by take my yoke upon you? The rabbi's yoke was the rabbi's understanding and teaching of Torah, of the law. That was the rabbi's yoke. So when you followed a rabbi, when you became a disciple of a rabbi, you took his yoke upon you. There were different rabbis at the time. There was one called Hillel, there was one called Shimei. There's different guys. And they, for instance, had different takes on the Mosaic law about divorce. One would say, if your wife displeases you and burns the bread, you can divorce her. Another one says, if she commits adultery, you can divorce her. There's different yokes which the rabbi would put upon his disciples, and the disciples were expected to wear this yoke and teach the rabbi's teaching. That was a rabbi's yoke. So when Jesus says, take my yoke upon you, he's not talking about a lump of wood. He's talking about his interpretation of the Old Testament law. And what was Jesus' yoke anyway? What yoke did he wear? What is his yoke? His yoke surely is when he was baptized and God in the cloud said, this is my son in whom I'm well pleased. Listen to him. That was Jesus' yoke. Jesus' yoke was the Father's embrace. And it's not an embrace carried around about your neck anyway. Does not an embrace fit you better than any lump of wood? And in Jeremiah anyway, it talks about the yoke, and it talks about not just a yoke of wood, but a yoke of iron. Ouch. The son came home expecting to wear a wooden yoke. And what did he receive? He received the Father's embrace. We come back to God expecting God to put laws and regulations on us. We think Christianity is about doing this and doing that, and I got to read so many chapters a day. I got to do this. I really should do. Years ago, I went to a counselor. I was burnt out. And she says, Chick, you're suffering from hardening of the arteries. Not arteries, but arteries. Because my life is driven by, I ought to do this, and I ought to do that. That ring a bell with you? I really should do this. I really should do that. And then we become Christians, and we just take these arteries. I really should do this. I really ought to do that. I must do this. Not just to please myself, but just to please God. And God saying, no. I just want to embrace you. I just want to love you. I just want to accept you into my home. You're not going to live with the servants. And when that son woke up every morning, yes, he worked. And yes, he worked and sweated and toiled with the best of the servants, but he was in a completely different place. He was a son. And he knew he had been redeemed. He knew that his father had accepted him unconditionally. Jesus' yoke and embrace. We can go back to Genesis 15 and look at a very strange covenant with Abraham, which God made with Abraham. God promised Abraham that his sons would be more than the stars in the sky. And Abraham said, how so, God? Prove it to me, kind of think in a way. If he had been called Gideon and several years later he would have asked for a fleece, but he wasn't Gideon and it wasn't several years later, so he says, Lord, help me understand. So we read this strange thing, this strange story in Genesis 15. God put Abraham in a very deep sleep. He was throwing up the Zs. He was almost unconscious. He was useless. He was helpless. He was out of it, guys, completely. And then something happened. Verse 17. When the sun had gone down and it was dark, behold, no, before I talk about this, before Abraham went to sleep, he had to take animals and he cut the animals in two and put them side by side down the middle. So there's a bit of a heifer there and a bit of the heifer there and a bit. And so the animals were cut in two so you could walk between them. And this is how what is called cutting a covenant in the Old Testament. I'm making an agreement with you, I'm making a covenant with you, right? Okay. And if I break the covenant, may this happen to me what's happened to these animals. Or if you break the covenant, may this happen to you what's happened to the animals. Okay, so they walk between the animals, and this is called cutting a covenant. You can read about this in Jeremiah. So God says, do this, get this prepared at Abraham. So Abraham got this prepared and got the animals and everything ready. And then Abraham's out of it. Then he has a vision. And he sees in verse 17, and when the sun had gone down and it was dark, behold, a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch passed between these pieces. And on that day the Lord made a covenant with Abraham, saying, to your offspring I will give this land from the river of Egypt to the great river Euphrates. God cut a covenant with Abraham, saying, I will keep my promise. But do you notice, Abraham was out of it. And the smoking pot and the fire was what they call a theophany, a fancy word for just a kind of an expression, a revelation of God. So God goes between these pieces of animal himself. Abraham doesn't go through these pieces. God goes through these pieces on his own and effectively says to Abraham, I'm making a covenant with you. I will do this. And if either of us foul up, if I, God, foul up, of course, which he ain't going to do, or you, Abraham, foul up, which is most probable, I will take the hit. I will take the blame. I will carry the cost, Abraham. And Abraham, wake up. He's out of it. So God's saying, Abraham, to you and your children, if you break this covenant which I'm making, I will carry the cost, which is what Jesus literally did on the cross some thousands of years later. He carried the cross, this broken bodies. Jesus carried it completely and utterly. God says, if you foul up, I will carry the cost. Son, if you leave and sell up everything, the Father will carry the cost. You come back wanting to negotiate with me. Negotiations are done and dusted and history in Genesis 15. God does not negotiate. God loves you unconditionally. Stop trying to negotiate with God. Stop trying to say, if you do this, will you bless me? If I do this, will you? It doesn't work that way. God just throws his arms around about you and says, shut up and let me love you. Shut up and let me forgive you. Shut up and let me embrace you. Because that's what I promised those thousands of years ago. Rest for your souls like you cannot imagine. It changes everything. I better see what else I've got here. There we are, we talked about that. What does this mean? It's not a bit of wood, friends. It's God's embrace. And if you think an embrace grows with you, doesn't it? You can embrace a child, and as the child gets bigger, the embrace still fits. And isn't this what discipleship is? If I was to hug somebody, you kind of want to get comfortable. You're hugging somebody you love, or even somebody, you kind of fit into the hug. You kind of fit into the embrace, don't you? So it's not bony and uncomfy. That's what discipleship is. Fitting into God's embrace. And the bits which jar and uncomfortable and pokey out bits and stuff, they're the bits which God says you need to adjust so that I can embrace you better. So that's what Jesus' yoke is, I would suggest. And we can unpack that, and we can unpack that, and we can unpack that. That changes your life, that changes your future, that changes your present. There's more than that. There's a thing called the cycle of works, which a lot of us kind of work to in a way. We feel that to be accepted, we need to achieve something. And if I just do this, then people will like me. People will accept me. If I do this, if I accomplish something, then I am worth something. I'm significant. I've got value because I have done. And then you need to sustain this. You need to keep this going, because yesterday's accomplishment doesn't cut it for tomorrow. You got to keep proving your worth day after day. You got to keep jumping through those hoops. You got to keep sustaining that image. And once you've done that, you can feel accepted. But look what I've done. I'm significant. I'm keeping this up. Yes, I'm accepted. Don't we see the world? People jumping through these hoops, seeking acceptance by what we do, by fitting in with our peer group, by feeling we got to accomplish to be worth something. Well, God calls us to a cycle of grace, where we start by being accepted. That's where we start. I am accepted. I am loved unconditionally. I'm accepted. I don't have to work for my acceptance. I don't have to do anything for my acceptance. God has just said, I love you. You're accepted. And from that acceptance, you learn to sustain and maintain by prayer, by relationship with the Father, by all these things we talk about. But it's not to find acceptance, it's to maintain and keep that acceptance of God's love. Then from our acceptance and from our learning to how to live in this place of acceptance, we find significance, we find worth. It's not because of what I do, it's because of what's been done. It's not because I'm great, it's because my Father is great. It's not anything I can do, it's because my Father has embraced me. It's because my Father has paid the price. I'm accepted. And therefore I'm significant, because God says, you are worth it. You are worth it. That's all you need to know. And then from that, we do stuff. We achieve stuff. The son, as I said, got up every morning. He sweated with the best of the hired servants. Oh, he worked. But he worked from a completely different place. Not to earn wages. Because he was built from the place that he was a son. He was accepted. And this cycle of grace can affect all of our lives. Jesus talks about loving the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind. So rest can look like our heart. It can affect our heart. It can affect our emotions. We can find rest in our emotions. There's a thing with parenting called attachment theory. Maybe some of you have heard of this. And it's how rested, how secure a child feels. And there's a wonderful book by a lady called Sue Gerhardt, Why Love Matters. And she talks about children just needing a hug. In our home group, small group at church, we call a 20-second hug. Do you need a 20-seconder? There was one lady, we were praying for her, and she broke down. She really touched. And another lady said, do you need a 20-seconder? That'd be great. and just hugged her for 20 seconds. Because in 20 seconds it brings the heartbeat down, it resets your nervous system, it changes things. Yeah, I really could do with a 20-seconder. And children, to hug them, resets them to this place of rest. And the Father's embrace for us can reset us. Soul, to breathe. Just to breathe in the Father's love, to integrate your body, mind, spirit again. So you're not a fractioned person, but you're an integrated person. Or strength. What do you think the Sabbath's about? The Sabbath rest is about. That's your strength, that's your energy. And the mind to renew our intellect. But it goes further than that. And this is where I found my breath was taken away entirely. Matthew 13. Matthew 13. Parable, verses 44 and 45. The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and covered up. Then in his joy he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of pearls, who on finding one pearl of great value went and sold all that he had and bought it. Our traditional understanding, which I don't think is wrong, is that it's us who sells everything to find this pearl of great price. We come to Christ, we see the kingdom, and God calls us to give up everything. We sung that already. To have what God has given us. Yes, that's right. But I think I want to flip that right on its head. And we'll say, you are the pearl of great price. God came looking for you. You were covered, you were in darkness, you were dirty. And God found you, and God sold everything. 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 His Son for you. You are the pearl of great price. And God gave up everything for you so that he could embrace you, so that he could call you his son and daughter, so that he could say, I love you. You are the pearl of great price. And then we can go back to Isaiah 62, verse 3, which talks about, you will be a crown of splendor in the Lord's hand, a royal diadem in the hand of your God. So God takes the pearls of great price and puts them in his crown to his glory. What a wonderful thought. You are the pearl of great price. So God can put you, and we read that in Malachi, in his crown. To his glory, of course. But my friends, there's even more than this. Creation was meant to be at rest. Man was created on the sixth day, on the Friday. Yeah? Friday afternoon. Oh, never trust a Friday afternoon job. No, I only mean that jokingly. Man was created on the Friday. There were 6 days of creation and 8 elements to creation, and man was the Friday. But there's the Saturday, the Sabbath, rest. Man's first day was a day of rest, not a day of work. We are created to work from rest, not rest from work. Man is intrinsic to creational rest. And until we are at rest, creation cannot be at rest. Which is why we read in Romans 8 about the creation is waiting on tiptoes for the sons of God to be revealed. Because when we enter our rest, God's rest, then creation will enter its rest. So our rest, this rest which Jesus gives, this rest which he promises in Matthew 11, is not just so that I can feel good about myself. It's so that creation, all of creation, can be redeemed when we find our rest. And then we can take it one further. The Son comes back to the Father, is redeemed, is embraced, and lives and works in the Father's house as a son. One day, the Father will die, and the Son will rule. The Son will govern. The Son will have authority over the farm, over the lands. In coming back, the Father will give the Son authority, will give the Son his place. And as the Son finds his place in the Father's vineyard, the Father's farm, so the Father's farm will have rest. And the angst in the Father is as it should be. So my friends, not only does God want to embrace us now and give us his rest now, not only is this rest so that creation can come into this rest, but this rest which Jesus offers in Matthew 11 is that you will rule and reign with him in glory. Because that's what the Father's embrace means. That's what the Father's embrace entails. That's what this Father's embrace includes. That you will rule and reign with him in glory. You are beloved by God. Now, if that's not rest for your souls, then I don't know what is. That you can relax and just trust God now because he has paid for it all. But then I hope your breath will be taken away and going, oh, is it that big? Is it that good? No, you can't be honest. Just go read the scriptures, my friends. Just go read what it says. And that pearl, what are the gates to the New Jerusalem we read in Revelation made of? Pearls. I think with Sarah, when she heard the promise of God, she just laughed. I think our appropriate response could be just to laugh. Is this really true? Is it this good? Yes, it is. Because our God is this good. And we can hold up our smiley faces high and say, this is our God. Amen. So we can come to communion. A feast which the Father laid out. The Son came back wanting to work, and the Father embraced him. Then what did he do? He laid on a feast. Here it is. You are loved. You are embraced. You are called to be part of his kingdom. You're called to know his rest. You're called to be that pearl of great price. And that's the value which he placed on you. And then you're called to rule and reign with him. And in your ruling and in your rest, creation will find its rest, symbolized by this. Shall we pray? What's Harry? Harry's pointing at things.
You were going to do a video.
Have you got time?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, here we go. How do we get this to play? Help me, somebody. There's a video to play. Here we go.